Western esotericism in the late 1800s was a mixture of Gnosticism, Kabbalah, Hermeticism, Neoplatonism, alchemy, and Eastern mysticism, a reaction against scientific materialism and Christian orthodoxy. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn was founded in 1887 by William Wynne Westcott and Samuel Liddell Mathers. It was a highly structured hierarchical system that promised hidden knowledge through rigorous study and ritual practice. Its members included intellectuals, artists, and seekers who treated occultism as a legitimate path to understanding reality. Aleister Crowley joined the Golden Dawn in 1898, but he went out on his own, forging his own offshoot school. He incorporated Eastern Tantra, Egyptian magic, and the philosophy of the individual will over doctrine. Crowley's famous quote, "Do as thou will shall be the whole of the law," I think summarizes his core philosophy very nicely. To this day, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn is one of the biggest influences on occultism and the fringe world in general, found at the center of it all. It is accidentally responsible for linking the 60s New Age movements with the esoteric world, which is why yoga and hippies are considered culturally linked. Yes, it does, interestingly enough, directly explain that connection, and I will explain how. But first, back to Crowley. The actual teachings get kind of confused and mixed up nowadays. Is it just random cultist rituals? Did he practice yoga? Well, yes, actually, Aleister Crowley was an avid practitioner, student, and early Western instructioner of yoga. His teachings also directly involve the creation of sexual tantric yoga, too. Quite an inventor. Part of the core philosophy of Crowley and the Thelmic school of magic is that rituals are mere conduits. They are tools for gaining control over one's will, so to speak, like how some people try to get up at the same time even on their days off. Crowley encourages strict adherence to the exact rules of his rituals, but simultaneously advocates to create one's own. As long as you do it exactly as you set out to do, as consistently as you set out to do it, and with the mindset you decide to do it with each time. There is a connection also between the occult practice of psychography, or instinctual writing without directing what you're writing, and Thelma. The Book of Laws is a book considered significant in Thelma, supposedly written in an instinctual writing frenzy by Crowley under a pen name. I prefer the Book of Lies, however, a collection of Taoist-like esoteric poems, also by Crowley. Crowley died in 1947. Thankfully, there was a spare. Austin Osman Spare was a contemporary of Crowley. They were both working in early 1900s, London occult circles, so they knew of the Golden Dawn, but Spare went in his own direction, stripped things down, and made magic more personal and less ceremonial. He is specifically credited with the creation of sigil magic. He's more a parallel contemporary than a direct student to Crowley, however. Chaos magic was directly created by these two. Gerald Gardner claimed his Wicca lineage from an old witch cult, but scholars now believe he synthesized it. He drew heavily from Golden Dawn material, Crowley's writings, and folklore. He was definitely influenced by the Occult Revival of Crowley, but he positioned Wicca as something different and older. Crowley's influence is there in the structure and symbolism, but Gardner wasn't necessarily a Crowley disciple. Timothy Leary saw all this in the 1960s, and he was doing a lot of acid, and he liked it so much that he said that he was completely inspired by the Golden Dawn. But in truth, a lot of his writings are very much so his own thing. Weird sci-fi philosophy, a blend of pseudoscience, occultism, psychology, and 60s counterculture. He really did, though, bring together these two worlds. But it wasn't just Tim Leary that helped collide these worlds. Between the writings of Anton Wilson, Christopher Hayat, The Church of the Subgenius, The Principia Discordia, and Tero Ali, the merging realities between the occult and the New Age was on in full force. Timothy Leary himself wrote Exopsychology, later renamed the Infopsychology, which posited the eight-circle model of consciousness. It is, in my opinion, the most interesting part of this whole rabbit hole. Infopsychology doesn't do that great a job presenting it, though. It's simultaneously too academic sounding while also seemingly beating around the bush of explaining what the model really is. Robert Anton Wilson's book, however, is my favorite book of all time. It is a much better explanation. It is a beautiful blend of occult psychology, philosophy, comedy, and it's, in my opinion, the real Bible of the modern fringe scene. It explains the eight-circuit model nicely. There is also Antero Ali's book, on the other hand, Angel Tech, which is pretty much just an extension, a later work, which further elaborates and gives more info on the eight-circuit model, but it's only an okay book, in my opinion, and it's really only for people hyper-obsessed for some reason with the eight-circuit model, like me. When it comes to books and authors like Hayat, with his Undoing Yourself, and by an anonymous author, Principia Discordia, and the collected writings of the Church of Subgenius, it's important to note that an undermentioned but secretly very important part of this New Age cult revival scene is that, as said in the words of Rudyard Kipling, words are, of course, the most powerful drug used by mankind. What I mean by that is, these books, like Undoing Yourself, are written to be kind of like drug trips or word trips. They intentionally obfuscate themselves and intentionally speak very abstractly, intentionally esoterically. They use weird riddles, pictures, like Zen koans. They have the same intention behind the obfuscation as Zen koans. Getting someone disconnected, weirded out, confused is a good way to get the reader to instinctually answer the questions themselves. It is also a way to manipulate them. But what the books are trying to program you with is stuff like the notion of, as said in the Book of the Subgenius, pulling the wool over your own eyes before anyone else can do it for you, trying to create your own tunnel vision before someone else creates yours for you. Another big part of the modern New Age scene is goddess worship. Eris, Nuit, Doit. These are some of the big names in Selma modern esoteric culture. In Hayat's book, Undoing Yourself, there is a kind of metaphor with the goddess Doit, with worship to her being done in the form of direct action. If you look back to the original interpretation of karma, it can be argued that it originally just meant what results from one's actions, so maybe there isn't some spiritual force directing who has what happened to them, but there is a direct one-to-one consequence of every act. That is, whatever your act directly, literally causes. That's another, I think, very underutilized interpretation of karma, which aligns with a metaphorical version of it as expressed in Undoing Yourself and Angel Tech. Another big part of the general philosophy of the New Age occult is creation of one's own religion. Or philosophy, or ideology. Timothy Leary even wrote a book on how to start your own religion in 1967, but I personally felt it was rather silly. He says for some reason every religion needs its own specific type of wedding, so you can't have both homosexual and straight weddings in the same religion. He was not against homosexuals, so I have no idea why he included such a silly rule. I personally find it just strange. If I were to give official instructions for creating a religion, I would say, do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. I mean, after all, the whole point of creating your own ideology should be, well, it's rather limitless. Anyways, you can still see the residual influence of how this band of offers shaped the world of the occult to this day. Wiccan is still around. People get the Masonic Guild and Illuminati mixed up with the Hermetic Order of Golden Dawn all the time. The Psychonaut Field Manual, for instance, is a modern condensation and compression of chaos magic, and it made the rounds of the prominent introduction to chaos magic and general occultism online. I highly recommend it, but I will say I recall it being semi-dogmatic with how it describes ritual practices. You must do it exactly this way, exactly like this, so on. I think it's important to emphasize that ritual practice is for shaping your will to be what you want it to be. And it's not so much about what exactly you do, so much as how the practice affects your will. Is this practice making you more focused, more able to fully direct your will, making your latent magical abilities more prominent, if you want to get that, Creation of one's own worldview is the basic of the occult revival of the 60s. Its origins are tied with the acid Kool-Aid tests, and a key part of their philosophy, Wilson and Leary, is the notion that one's worldview, sense of self, personality can all be changed, altered at will, and this could be used to create a kind of mental wonderland, a reality tunnel, pulling the wool over your own eyes before anyone else can. But isn't that just blatant reality denial? In Wilson and Leary's view, they would likely say no more than any other mindset. To them, every reality tunnel or worldview was just an artistic creation, no more. As Wilson often says, the map is not the territory, and he means that one's worldview is not the world. That sounds simple, obvious, and it is, but rarely do people actually act on that information. In Wilson's view, the way to act on this is by undertaking to metaprogram oneself. Even from Wilson and Leary directly, the process of metaprogramming is poorly defined. Even John C. Lilly's book on metaprogramming, who was the guy who invented sensory deprivation tanks and influenced Leary and Wilson, he was a bit ambiguous about what it really means to metaprogram, or how you will know if you really changed. For Leary and Wilson, they go back and forth between seemingly sometimes thinking metaprogramming can only occur under certain conditions, and other times claiming it can happen at any time, either randomly or self-directedly. Taking drugs, though, specifically acid, is a surefire way to do the trick, according to them. Anton says metaprogramming can occur at random moments too, like severe shock or sustained pleasure or sensory deprivation. Basically, according to them, your brain has a more malleable state under extreme or unusual conditions. So basically, in summary, they're saying that if you get jump scared, you should call yourself a brave boy right afterwards, and not a scared Sam, so that you will steel your nervous system against jump scares. Does that make any sense? Anton and Leary are also inspired partially by a guy named Wilhelm Reich, who supposedly had advanced medical tech called Orgon, or whatever. He supposedly did some shady shit with kids and had a judge burn his lab down, or something. Whether or not he did that or not is contested. Who knows? Some say the judge was out to get him. Honestly, who knows? It's a conspiracy thing. Nobody really knows. Either way, yeah, he's connected to all this. Anton and the rest likely also inspired partially Alan Watts, who went on to influence the whole modern guru scene. I hate Alan Watts personally. I just think he talks in circles and never gets to the point. but he is the connecting link between Timothy Leary and Muji. That's right, Muji. Motherfucking Muji. Yeah, so the last part worth mentioning is the important notion of synchronicity. Anton Wilson presented synchronicity as a kind of magical force in the world. According to him, synchronicities, such as where you hear a song come on just after wondering about it, or seemingly get an answer to a question you were just pondering from an advertisement that randomly comes on, or happenstance run into someone of personal significance in an unlikely way. To him, these are best seen as real magic, signs from the universe or God or whatever. It's a weird thing to note that a lot of these books do that weird schizophrenic thing where they talk in weird double entendres. As mentioned, Deut, for instance, is depicted in the book Undoing Yourself as a goddess worshipped by direct actions. Do It is her name, and the implied weird metaphorical joke being, well, her name is Do It, so to worship the goddess you do things, I guess. In the book of the Subgenius, there's a part where it talks about how writing is converting sense to sense. Weird. So listen, if you want a philosophical school that encourages you to take LSD, is anti-government, outsources its brainwashing to its own initiates, and lets you worship goddesses, then start with Anton Wilson's Prometheus Rising. It's sincerely the best thing that came out of this whole rabbit hole. I also recommend checking out the Psychonaut's Guide by Blue Fluke, which could still be free online. It should be. Anyways, with that, thank you for watching.